The night Arun's life cracked open began with a silence so heavy it felt like the sky was holding its breath, and he kept asking himself why the one he trusted most chose to break him. A warm rain swept through the village, as if trying to wash away a truth he had not yet seen. Yet each drop only echoed the pain beating inside his chest. People said betrayal comes like a knife, but his arrived like a whisper, wearing the face of a friend. When he saw Mina standing in the shadows of the old banyan tree, her eyes avoiding his, he felt the whole world shift out of place. And in that strange moment between heartbreak and shock, he wondered, if forgiveness is a path to peace, why does it begin with so much fire? And who decides when a wound becomes a teacher? Arun walked home slowly, trying to swallow the truth that Mina had given his secret pottery, designed to a wealthy merchant, claiming it as her own to win his favor, leaving Arun's work ruined and his honor shattered. The village whispered as he passed, but their stares hurt less than the memory of Mina's eyes refusing to meet his. He wondered how a heart could stay soft when the world kept pressing its weight on the same open wound. He tried to convince himself it was only a mistake, but anger kept clawing at him, louder than reason, louder than his own breath. Every shattered pot felt like another piece of trust cracking inside him, and he wondered why betrayal always hits the heart harder than the blow itself. As thunder rolled across the rooftops, Arun stepped outside to breathe. But the storm only pushed his pain deeper, making him feel small beneath a sky that never stopped watching. He whispered a single question into the wind. Why does the heart hurt most when it wants to stay kind? When Arun turned back toward the village, he saw the monk standing near the edge of the road, as if the storm itself had delivered him. Samita watched with calm, unreadable eyes, as though he already knew the weight Arun carried and had come for that reason alone. Arun woke before sunrise, his chest still tight with the same heaviness that had followed him through the night, and every attempt to breathe felt like dragging air through broken glass. He wanted to hate Mina, wanted the anger to burn hot enough to erase the hurt, but instead, it settled like cold stone inside him. As he stepped outside, he found Samita sitting on the damp ground as if waiting for him, silent and steady, like someone who had watched storms like this tear through many hearts before. Samita spoke little, letting the quiet do most of the guiding, and Arun found himself talking more than he expected. About the betrayal, the shame, the weight sitting in his chest like trapped fire. The monk listened with a stillness that felt almost unreal, neither judging nor interrupting, as though he knew that sometimes a wound begins to open only when someone else is willing to sit beside it. Arun confessed that every time he closed his eyes, he saw Mina handing his design to the merchant, and the memory stung with a fresh bitterness each time. He didn't want to remember, yet the mind clung to pain the way roots cling to old soil. Samita finally spoke, his voice low and gentle, saying that sometimes anger holds us tighter than the person we are angry at. Samita told him that anger is a heavy companion, one that promises strength but steals it slowly. Arun felt the words sink into him, not like comfort, but like truth he had tried to avoid, yet he wasn't ready to let go. A part of him believed his pain was all he had left of the trust that had been broken. As the day stretched on, the monk led Arun to the edge of the village where the fields met the rising river, saying nothing until the wind grew quiet. Then, in a voice almost carried away by the breeze, Samita told him that the first step of the ancient code was to see the truth clearly. Not the truth of the betrayal, but the truth of the heart carrying it. Arun felt a shiver run through him, unsure whether it was from fear, hope, or the sudden sense that his life was beginning to shift again. Arun followed Samita into the forest at dawn, unsure why the monk walked without a word, yet feeling that something important waited in the silence. The forest air was cool and smelled of wet earth, and each step seemed to soften the noise inside his mind. When they reached a clearing, Samita finally spoke, saying there existed an ancient code of forgiveness, a way older than the village itself, but it could not be learned through anger. Arun felt frustration rise again, for he wanted answers, not riddles. Yet the calm in the monk's voice held him still like an unseen hand. Samhita began telling an old parable of a man who carried a burning coal in his hand, believing it would somehow hurt the one who wronged him. Arun listened, confused at first, then, slowly, realizing the coal was the anger itself. The monk's voice flowed through the trees, like water seeking its own path. And for a heartbeat, Arun felt his own anger soften, only to return again even sharper, as if resisting the truth unfolding before him. Samhita said the second part of the code was understanding, not of the betrayer, but of the self. He asked Arun why his heart still burned when the moment of betrayal had already passed. Arun looked away, unable to answer, because the truth felt too raw. He feared the betrayal meant he was not worthy of loyalty, that something in him must have been weak or unlovable. The monk's eyes softened, as if he had heard this pain from many hearts before. Samhita knelt by the river and scooped a handful of water, letting it slip through his fingers as he said that suffering flows through every life, but clinging is what makes it feel endless. Arun watched the water fall and wished letting go were as easy as opening a hand, but memories of Mina's betrayal clung to him like wet clothes, heavy and cold, and he wondered if the ancient code was meant for people stronger than him. As the sun climbed higher, Samhita finally told Arun the third part of the code. Truth must be seen without the shadow of anger, or it will always look distorted. Arun felt the words strike deep, because he knew his pain had twisted everything. Mena's face, his own worth, even the future he imagined. The monk said the code would reveal more only when Arun was ready, and for the first time Arun felt a quiet fear, that the hardest part of forgiveness was not facing the one who hurt him, but facing himself. Arun returned to the village with Samhita's words echoing through him like distant thunder. But the moment he saw Mina standing near the well, every lesson cracked beneath the weight of memory. His chest tightened, and the world narrowed to the face that once felt safe but now carried the shape of his deepest wound. Mina looked up, her eyes full of guilt that seemed older than the morning itself, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt like a bridge burned on both ends, and Arun wondered if forgiveness was even possible, when the heart still flinched at the sight of the one who hurt it. Mina stepped closer, her voice trembling as she tried to explain that fear had driven her to betray him. Fear of losing her chance at a better life. Fear of being forgotten by a world that rarely remembered the poor. Arun listened, but the words felt like shards scraping against his heart, and a part of him wanted to turn away. Yet another part, quieter but stubborn, whispered that pain always sounds loudest right before it breaks. Arun told her he had trusted her more than anyone, and the moment she betrayed him, it felt like the world fell apart in his hands. Mina lowered her gaze, tears gathering but refusing to fall, as if even her sorrow feared being seen. She whispered that she never meant to hurt him, only to protect herself from a life she thought she wasn't strong enough to face. The words stung, but they also revealed a truth Arun had never considered. Betrayal sometimes sprouts from fear, not malice. As tension filled the air, Samhita approached quietly and stood between them, not as a judge, but as a mirror. He told them that truth without compassion becomes a weapon, and compassion without truth becomes blindness. Arun felt something shift inside him. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of understanding. Mina wiped her eyes and looked at Samhita the way someone looks at a stranger who somehow knows their heart better than they do themselves. Samhita told both of them that no bond breaks alone. Every wound carries two stories, not one. Arun felt the words sink deeper than he expected, and Mina looked as though she had been waiting her whole life for someone to speak them. For the first time since the betrayal, they stood not as enemies, but as two hearts bruised by the same moment, each holding pain the other had never seen. Arun didn't forgive her, not yet, but he felt his anger loosen slightly, like a fist slowly learning how to open. Dark clouds gathered over the village as if the sky sensed what hearts could not yet admit, that a storm was coming, one that would test every fragile step Arun had taken toward understanding. When the river began to rise faster than the villagers expected, panic spread like fire through dry grass. Arun ran to help strengthen the old wooden barriers, but when he saw Mina struggling alone with a heavy beam, the old conflict in him flared. Part of him wanted to protect himself from more hurt, and another part refused to leave her in danger. The choice pressed against him like a blade, anger or compassion, past or present. The villagers shouted for more help, their voices trembling as water surged against the barrier with rising fury. Arun caught himself staring at Mina, the person who had wounded him most, now standing on the edge of danger, her arms shaking as she tried to hold back the flood. Something in him cracked, not in anger, but in the painful understanding that compassion does not wait for a heart to be ready. It simply moves when another life is at risk. Without thinking, Arun ran toward her. As they pushed together, Mina's breath hitched, but she didn't look away from him this time. She whispered an apology so soft, it nearly drowned in the roar of the river. And for a moment Arun felt time slow, the world shrinking to just her trembling voice and his own shaking hands. He didn't answer. Not because he rejected her words, but because he didn't yet know how to hold them. Samita approached behind them, placing his hand on Arun's shoulder with a steadiness that cut through the storm. Samita told them the fourth part of the code. When compassion rises stronger than fear, the heart begins to free itself. Arun felt something shift inside him, a quiet warmth piercing through the storm's chill. Mina looked at him with a mixture of hope and disbelief, as if unsure whether this moment was a blessing or a punishment. Together, they pushed harder, and the barrier steadied for the first time since the river began to rise. When the storm finally eased, the villagers breathed in shaky relief. But Arun stood silently, soaked to the bone, staring at the calmer river. Something inside him had changed. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a doorway opening where before there had only been walls. Mina approached slowly, unsure if she had the right to stand near him. Yet, Arun didn't step away. Samita watched them both with a quiet smile, as if he had known all along that the storm outside would help settle the one within. The morning after the storm felt unreal, as though the world had been washed clean while Arun's heart still carried mud from the past. Samita led him back to the river, now calm and glistening under soft sunlight, and said the final parts of the ancient code could only be understood through action, not words. Arun felt his chest tighten, because some part of him already knew what the monk meant. That real release required facing the pain he had been gripping like a shield. The river whispered softly beside them, as if urging him forward. Samita handed Arun a small clay bowl, one of the few pieces left unbroken after the betrayal, and told him that holding on to anger was like holding on to this bowl. It made him feel safe, but it also kept both hands too full to receive anything new. Arun looked at the bowl, its cracks running through it like memories he couldn't erase. For a long moment, he simply breathed, feeling both the weight of the clay and the weight inside himself. With trembling hands, Arun lowered the bowl into the flowing water. At first, he expected to feel lighter, but instead a sharp pain rose in his chest, the kind that comes when a wound is touched instead of avoided. He felt the river pull against the bowl, as if asking him to let go, and a part of him resisted with all the strength of old hurt. Samita spoke softly, reminding him that release does not erase the past. It only frees the heart from carrying its weight. When Arun finally opened his hands, the bowl drifted away, spinning gently before sinking out of sight. A sharp breath escaped him, and he didn't know if it was sorrow, relief, or something deeper rising through the cracks of his heart. Mina, who had quietly followed them, stood a short distance away, watching the moment unfold. Her eyes softened as she realized this was not just a letting go. It was Arun choosing a path she had once thought impossible. Samita told them the final part of the code. Forgiveness is not a gift for the one who caused the pain, but a doorway the wounded builds for themselves. Arun felt the truth settle into him like gentle rain after a long drought. He did not forgive Meena in that instant, but he felt the first real step forming beneath his feet. Meena lowered her gaze, tears filling her eyes, and for the first time she whispered that she wanted to change. Not to erase the past, but to grow beyond it. Arun looked at her and realized his heart no longer flinched. It simply breathed. The next morning arrived soft and warm, as if the world itself wished to honor Arun's quiet shift inside. He walked through the village with a calm he hadn't felt since before the betrayal, not because the past had changed, but because he no longer fought it. When he reached the old banyan tree, where everything had once broken, he felt no tremor of anger, only a gentle ache that no longer owned him. Forgiveness, he realized, was not about wiping away the wound, but about letting the heart breathe again. Meena approached with hesitant steps, unsure whether she deserved even a glance. But Arun greeted her with a quiet nod that surprised them both. She apologized again, this time without fear, only sincerity. Arun listened, and though the pain still existed like faded ink on old cloth, it no longer pressed on his chest. What he felt instead was a gentle clarity, as though the storm inside him had bowed and stepped aside. Arun told her that he wasn't sure he could forget what had happened, but he no longer needed to hold it against her. Meena's breath broke into a quiet sob, not from sorrow, but from the relief of being seen as more than her mistake. For the first time since the betrayal, they spoke not as two people divided by hurt, but as two hearts stepping cautiously toward understanding. Samita watched from a distance, smiling with the quiet pride of someone who had seen another soul step out of its own shadow. He approached them and said the final teaching: forgiveness is not an end, but a beginning. A path that keeps unfolding as long as the heart stays open. Arun and Meena both bowed their heads, feeling the truth of those words settle deep within them like seeds ready to grow. When evening came, Samita prepared to leave the village, carrying only his staff and the calm of a man who had guided many hearts back to themselves. Arun and Meena walked with him to the edge of the road, grateful, yet changed in ways words could never hold. As the monk stepped onto the path, Arun realized he no longer felt chained to the past. He felt free. Not because the wound had healed perfectly, but because he had stopped feeding it. Meena looked at him with new hope, and the world around them felt open in a way it never had before. Forgiveness, Arun understood at last, is not a gift we give others. It is the freedom we finally give ourselves.